Now I'm pepperminty everywhere. My hands, my eyes, my nose.
How was that on the scale 1 to 10?
I would say maybe a 2.
A 2.
A 2 or a 3, like that, somewhere in between those.
And how did it feel?
I feel the tingling. I like the mintness of it. Actually cleared out my nose, which is generally clogged up, so it's a nice tool to open it up. I feel my heart rate a little up, but I also feel calm at the same time. So I don't know if you get those feelings yourself or not, but I felt my heart rate go up a little bit.
Wow. You can feel your heart rate?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not too far.
All right, cool. Shall we?
Yeah.
All right, beautiful. So I'm really excited to have Suren with us today. Suren is a dear friend. One of the things I really admire Suren about is his joy for life. Anytime that I talk to him, whether it is during our friendly conversations, whether it's conversations with other people around, or whether it's conversations when his employees are around, you always feel that gentle, joyous way of being. So welcome, Suren. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, CK. Thank you for the compliments, and you really are super admiring, super charming, and someone I look up to as well.
Oh, thank you.
I really respect all the talents you have, so I want to share that with you.
Thank you. So let's start with these questions. What were some pivotal moments in your childhood that made you the man that you are, the person that you are? So that way people who are listening to this can get some relatedness to the person that they're listening to.
Sure. You know, I had a pretty happy childhood, I would say. Lived in a very safe city. So it was, you know, in the summers we would stay up as a child. I remember till, you know, midnight, 2 a.m. even sometimes, rarely. But, you know, it was all just fun, and like you enjoyed with the neighborhood. All the kids are out kind of by the park, and that's like an early memories I remember a lot, that, you know, how incredible that experience was to grow up. And then I also remember that I pretty early on I just felt the need to be very independent. So I wouldn't let my parents, from first grade, I wouldn't let them help me with homework or even look at what I'm doing. And interestingly, they both accepted. They both were like professors in school. So that was pretty cool to get that acceptance from them and not be kind of on my neck about it. And it really pushed me to prove that the choice I made was the right one for me, because I can, you know, bring the good grades and have a fun life as well, even as a child. For some reason, this shaped me for the rest of my life, I think.
So you were a free-range child.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, that's so interesting. Which is actually contrary to the way I was raised. I was raised by basically tiger parents.
Right.
There's clear boundaries.
Yeah.
Clear parameters. You do not go past that parameter. Otherwise, there would be serious consequences.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. So they were really that trusting, and then you just embraced it right away.
I embraced it, and then I really early too, I remember, was like, I was thanking them for leaving that trust with me, because that's not necessarily how they raised my sister.
So they had a different way of parenting.
A little bit differently with her, I guess, just because of our culture. You know, there was a little bit more boundaries around the girl. And probably another thing that comes to mind was early on going and visiting one of my uncles who was a physicist, and he took me, I think I was probably 7 or 8, and he took me, and I got to see my first computer in my life. and I just remember the moment. I mean, it wasn't even a computer; it was a mainframe, and he let me play a game on it. So it was, just such a wondrous and mysterious moment. Like, how am I interacting with the machine? So that, I think, was a pretty big moment for me. I was like, wow, I was just so fascinated with technology at that point. I think it just, I feel some sort of a switch that happened.
That was the moment you fell in love.
I did, yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, without going to the more on the curiosities, because I am curious, and so let's hold that for a moment. But because of how we met, in the context of how we met, the impression that I had is, no matter what situations that you're in, you're always joyous, or you always bring some element of fun and humor into it. So were you that way when you were younger, or it was more of a cultivated journey?
It was cultivated.
It was? Okay.
Yeah, it was something. I had an experience. I left Armenia because of an earthquake, which was very devastating for the entire city. With like maybe half the population was gone that day, and a very big majority of my school. I actually procrastinated, which...
How old were you?
10.
10, okay.
Yeah.
So you actually saw death?
Oh yeah.
At that age?
Oh yeah. I mean, I remember very vividly, first of all, going through the experience, being on the 3rd floor of the building we lived in, literally watching the walls open up, and luckily being the only building in the neighborhood that stayed up. When we came out, it was just, it was a lot of tall buildings. We lived in the center of the city, and my mom was like, literally, I remember she turned around to me and she's like, where did these 1-story houses come from? Like, it didn't register this kind of devastation right away. So that was, a pretty traumatic time, I would say. And I had my kind of darker days.
So you were traumatized?
Oh yeah, of course. I think that, seeing something like that, even though we were super lucky and, immediate family was okay. We lost a lot of relatives, but that, seeing death on the streets and just the trauma and the moving into different cities in a short span definitely affected. I think it's normal. Anyone would get affected by that. But then the realization after that, I think, is where I found these, like, oh, well, I stayed alive. I should be happy. And I think...
How old were you?
I would say maybe 14. Okay. So I was already here in US, and I remember I went to my father and I was like, this earthquake, and my dad was, of course, for him, he came, he was 35, and he came, switched, he had an incredible life back there in Soviet Union. It was just the time when you can start opening up your own businesses, like corporations. This is Gorbachev started. And my dad had a lot of patents and a lot of ideas, so he started a shoe factory, and it had started going. It was really cool and innovative, and then he lost everything. So for someone, he came with a very negative kind of mindset, he made it positive, but internally he had felt that he left everything and had to come. He didn't necessarily want to come to the States, even though most of his relatives were already here. But
he was obligated to be here.
Yeah, he's like, if I'm gonna have to start my life from zero, might as well start it in the land of opportunity. So I turned to him and I told him, Dad, this earthquake was the best thing that probably happened to your kids.
And you said that when you were 14?
Yeah.
Wow. And so you say more about that. What did you mean?
Well, I realized, it was very tough for us in the beginning. Literally came to, like a typical immigrant story, we came to US with like $900 in our pocket, and our first month rent was $750. So really quickly, both parents had to both learn English and work nonstop. So I was spending a lot of time alone at home with my sister. Our age difference is 10 years apart, so it was like both brother and sister, and also parent and child, and also because I had to like watch her during those periods, so I became more of a parent. So I think that helped me probably mature really quick. Just all the experiences accumulated together made that happen, I think. And so yeah, I had basically that realization of, well, if that didn't happen, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't, make a new life for ourselves. We would be, because what happened after the earthquake, the city was basically with no lights. The lights would turn on one time for 1 hour at a random hour. It could be like 4 a.m.
Oh wow!
And you would get lights and water and warm water. So that's how people lived for like 5-6 years.
Oh wow! So the infrastructure was gone.
It's like going back a couple of thousand years, basically.
Oh man!
So, and I knew that was happening too. So it was like, oh well, here is great. We're watching Married with Children, and everything's good. All the family's near. So, yeah, it was just a realization. It wasn't anything like super profound. It was just like, wow, like I want to be grateful, because if that didn't happen, and also there was a war that Armenia was in as well. So that both those two things turned the country really upside
So infrastructure was gone. There was a war going on.
Yeah, just very draining.
Political stability.
Yeah. So it was just, I realized that it was a good time we came here.
But was that a switch that you go like, okay, so from now on, then I should live my life this way?
Right, not like a victim of it.
Yeah.
But embracing it, because because it's a choice. You could choose to be the victim of it, or like, let me find a positive from this. So I didn't even have a choice, let me put it that way. It was like the only way to go.
Well, but yes, you're right. It's simple to say, but it's not actually common.
Maybe.
Because you can find victims everywhere.
That's true.
Whatever the income, whatever the economic, socioeconomic, situation they're in. Woe is me is easy. It's part of being human. So hence why so that was literally, it was like a switch. It was like, from now on, I'm gonna be grateful for everything.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah, because I feel like going into a negative direction is a first human reaction, right? It's like, I feel like going into a negative direction is the least resistance to the path. And then, you could choose to hump over that and turn your life to a more positive perspective.
Interesting. So recently I was in my meditation retreat. That's actually the thing that I realized. In my mind, my mental model is, there is the ego, right? The humanistic, the animalistic reactions, being angry, being in fear, and being jealous, whatever. Those things actually requires zero effort on my part. It's a natural reaction. I don't need to input anything. Naturally, I'm just gonna feel that way.
Yeah.
And however, it actually takes more effort, conscientious choice, to be grateful, to be generous, to be loving.
Yeah, and it's a practice. It doesn't just happen. Like you do it once.
Right.
Doesn't mean you're gonna continue to do it.
Right.
But I think when you do it once and you're mindful of it, you're like, wow, this is actually so much better than going into a negative direction. So then it makes the path a little bit easier for someone to choose. Like, oh, let me just put let's do one more push-up, and then things will feel a little better.
So you start taking on that practice when you were 14.
Yeah.
Hence why it's now more I guess effortless.
Yeah.
So what are some of the actual practice do you, I guess, conscientiously do? I guess maybe if you think back when you were younger, in your 20s, in your 30s, like, what were some of the path that you took to get to where you are right now?
I think the first thing I discovered was power of breathing. And I just found so much peace just doing deep breaths. Again, probably around the same age, if not earlier. And just I guess it was a way of meditating. I would just sit. I didn't even know what I was doing. I just knew it felt good. So I would just do that over and over and over, and then it would just bring so much peace and light that I would do it. And sometimes my mom would be like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm great."
Amazing. Did you share it with your parents? Did you share it with your family?
I don't think so.
It was more just like a trick you figure out internally.
I just like it feels good to do it. I'm just doing it. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just I like something you stumble upon, and it like felt great. So that was one thing. Early, I remember that I started, and it was like I felt. Now obviously looking back, I realized that was somewhat meditating, doing breath work, and it just like lowered a lot of anxiety and just brought peace, as it should. And then later, like once I got more exposed to life, I was like all these religions that I felt like you had to pick one. So I started studying as many of them as possible.
You did?
Yeah.
How old were you then?
Actually, I remember pretty early, like my parents got me an encyclopedia back in Armenia, and that was like, I didn't like reading, just your stories. And to me, they felt like, yeah, they're nice to read, but I'm not necessarily gaining. I wanted something like practical,
Right.
So I just started like reading
something tactical.
Yeah, tactical, exactly. So I was like, let's just open up, starting with letter A, and we're gonna read what's in the encyclopedia because I want to know what's out there in the world. So that was that. It kind of from there. Then I got exposed to all the different religions. So I was like, oh, what's all this about? Because my parents were not necessarily religious. They were very, they were Christian, but they weren't necessarily practicing or anything like that. It was
culturally
Christian.
Christian.
It was more tradition. Yeah, it was more tradition. So it was, for me, it was very interesting. Like, oh, what else? What other things are available? Why? And then also at the same time, I was like, well, maybe I could learn wisdom from all of them. So that explorations into that, I think, and seeing what's congruent with me. That was looking more for that too.
That's so fascinating. So you were that curious about wisdom back when you were 14, 15?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Maybe earlier.
Or even
earlier.
Right, because you were,
like
that was before the accident.
Before, yeah.
the disaster. That's interesting. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was all intuitive.
It was. And then there was a huge gap. Then like schooling here started, and just I kept myself busy. I tried to work and school.
Oh, you were working?
Oh yeah, I started working pretty much like the first year I came here, at like 13.
What were you doing?
There was a program our school had, junior high school, with the fire department, and summer times they would take us onto like slopes and steep hills to cut the brush to prevent fires. So that was the first job.
All right.
$3.25 an hour.
$3.25 an hour.
It was cool.
Wow.
It was a lot of money back then for me.
Yeah, I'm sure. Huh.
For a 13-year-old back in the $1990.
Now, did you appreciate it?
Kid.
What did you appreciate what you were doing actually then, or were you just looking for that paycheck to come?
I realized every job showed me like where I need to be doing, and I realized I wasn't really made for manual labor.
All right, you learned something.
I definitely learned. But thank God it was just a summer job. I stuck through it. I didn't quit.
Right.
It was cool to be outdoors too, but definitely it was probably the last manual labor job.
All right, so that's interesting. So when did you? So let's go back to your love. You fell in love with technology. Did you then, after that, pick up technology after that?
No. After that, then there was the next year there was a job with a shoe store. So during Christmas, so I tried that, and then I realized the retail isn't my thing either. very quickly. I was like, whoa, it was my first exposure to public, like outside of family circles, outside of school circles. It was like just straight, like a wave hitting you in the face, like right away, because it's like Christmas time, busy, you get the worst of people. And I didn't know that about the world. And it was a very shocking experience. So that job was very short too.
I actually had retail experience.
Yeah?
During holiday seasons.
Oh,
so I actually understand exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
but I wasn't self-aware enough to know that it wasn't for me. So I think I did a couple of summers.
So, but then I actually, at home, the first gift I got when I came to the States was a 286 computer my uncle gave me. And it didn't even have hard drive. It had two giant floppies, those 5.5.
Yeah, I remember.
And one had an operating system, and the other one had a programming language, GW Basic. And basically, I had to write software that I wanted.
Oh, interesting.
And
what a gift.
Yeah, that was a cool gift. And that's where I started with, my passion for software engineering. And my father also took software programming classes because his brother was doing that. Interestingly, actually, half of my family is in medicine and the other half is in computers.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and then we'll get to that later of how my life I ended up doing both kind of now with my software company.
Yeah. So what were some of the other pivotal moments in your life that made you as a man, that made you as a person?
Well, I got a job after that. There was a program with my school with JPL, so I ended up going there and worked there a little bit longer, 2 years. It was very cool. We were working on a lot of projects, mostly like weather balloons and things like that, but also got to participate with my boss. She was working on some, very cool far orbit projects, Cassini project. I don't know if you remember. They recently crashed it into Saturn, but I got to see, touch it, watch the code in it as it went, across our solar system. So that was a very fascinating experience too, because I had a passion, and I still do, in cosmology. But then there I realized I don't want to be in a very big organization. It's too bureaucratic. There's too many politics. So that was the reason I got out of there.
So hold on one second. So the through line is the self-awareness part. Were you really that clear about exactly the language you said? This is too big, too bureaucratic.
Oh, yeah.
Like I don't like it. Really?
Yeah, not like from day one, but it was just like a slow real. I mean, if you're in a bureau, I don't know if you've worked in a.
I worked in 2 universities before. So
yeah. So I think when you're in it, you start realizing there's less, more work could be done, and then there's all these hurdles you have to jump through to get anything done. Why is it so inefficient? I think then that became a little bit, actually I had that, I think, early too. Is this efficiency? Everything needs to be more efficient. I would go around at home and turn off the lights. I'm like, you guys are leaving the lights on. I remember early on I was doing things like that. So that's why I'm thinking I probably had this all along. But later, I was like, we need to, figure out how to fight entropy. That's part of what the world needs.
Fascinating.
So just going through probably lots of different experiences like that here, with work and school. I feel like every day could be and should be pivotal for us. But those moments definitely have, are the spikes, I would say, that are clear in my head.
Yeah, because every moment we always make a choice.
Right.
I think to go even a little bit more grandiose, some people are saying, right, speaking on the study of the universe, that there's multiple universes happening at any given time based on each decisions that you make. You enter into a new universe.
Right.
So new possibilities, new rounds of possibilities happen then. So hence why self-awareness, self-consciousness is so, I believe, so important. So you don't just make decisions randomly. That's okay too, but I think to be more conscientious about it. And I've learned in my life, it's a very, 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 very important thing.
Hey, I've made a lot of decisions on a coin, like flipping the coin.
Did you?
Yeah, a lot. Huge
so,
decisions too.
No kidding. So what were some of the decisions you made
Oh my
flipping
God.
coins?
Starting different businesses.
No kidding.
Yeah, just relationships. I you know,
You
even
literally flip a coin and say,
flip a coin.
I want to go with this person.
I
or
do
this
it out of
person.
3. You have to do 3. You have to give it 3 chances, and you'll be surprised. The best decisions, the 3 times that it falls on, are always the same. Like that's when I know that's for sure. Like, you know, it's between. Like it's not just what the winner is; it's the frequency of the same.
Right, the expected
Showing
value
you.
of this
Yeah.
particular decision.
So it's interesting. I don't know how that started, but I just one day decided to flip a coin and see which decision I should take, and then started it became a little practice.
Do you still do it today?
Yeah. And now I have my wife doing it too.
That is funny. No, this is great. Now I know a little bit of the mental model that you're working on. So you don't do like a spreadsheet with the expected value?
No, just
Here's the
easy.
probability.
3 times, it's 50-50, and we'll see where it goes.
We'll see where it goes. Yeah, I mean, one of my mental models about this is ultimately, and you may be able to speak to this, ultimately if the end result, the outcome is not catastrophic, then you can just make decisions quickly because you can always unwind and reverse and
Right.
take another path. It's not, I mean, I don't know. What do you think about that?
I agree. Yeah, they're not life and death decisions, of course, but they are significant ones. But also sometimes I have full trust in the universe, so I feel like that's like a way. It's a bi-directional communication with it. So it's a way of it telling me like, okay, maybe you should go this route, because I sometimes when it comes to choices, they're binary, and like you said, if it's not going to harm anybody and you have a way of going back, then it's a safe way, and it just makes the process of decision making easy, because my life has just become like one nonstop decision making, and you get tired of it sometimes. So I resort to this. I mean, it's not very frequent. It's maybe once every few months. It's not like every decision is made with it, but just for fun, sometimes when I become undecisive, actually, when I feel a little bit undecisive, that's when I might go use that as a tool.
Okay, so let's unpack that just a little bit.
Yeah.
When you feel undecisive, it's like unsettledness. Like, should I, shouldn't I?
Right.
Maybe I should, but what if I do that? That unsettledness, is that?
Yeah,
what you mean?
yeah, exactly. Because usually, like when I get choices, I like know where to go, but then of course you might overthink it, and that's something I've been working on getting rid of as well. Just this like, once you start, it's like a rabbit hole, right? Overthinking, it's just down, and it only can go negative. So I try to stop it with different tools. That
Like flipping coins.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, the ego, the human mind, our brain is evolved to help us not die. So therefore, it's very, very good at come up with what if scenarios, and then usually it's like the worst.
Right.
but oftentimes the worst rarely happens.
It's true. Yeah.
So this is interesting. So let's see, how do I ask my follow-up question about that? What other mental models do you have to help you, make decisions quickly, or make the right decisions?
Just really trusting your instinct more and more, which is tough in the beginning because you're not always like confident with it. So that's a little bit of a practice too. And then you start realizing, well, I had this instinct, but I didn't listen to it, and now it's too late. Or I had this instinct, but then I convinced myself out of it, and I didn't make the right decision. So then, eventually, once you start becoming more and more aware of those moments, just like doing a little pathology when it's done, just opening up the situation, the patient, and seeing what happened there. And then, it led back to, well, you should have listened to your intuition because it was telling you so. Sometimes it doesn't make sense, but now I try to be more keen on capturing that.
So you're big on trusting your intuition.
Yeah.
Trusting your instincts.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever read the book Blink? Blink.
Oh, Blink.
By Malcolm Gladwell?
No.
Okay. That's what the whole book is about. Yeah.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, it's interesting. They're basically their whole assertion of the book is if you're an amateur, the instincts chances are inaccurate. But when you become an expert, like let's say an expert driver or expert surgeon, the decision they make within blink of a moment chances are accurate because you've practiced so many times.
Yeah.
So it's like an interesting way to look at how do we actually make decisions, and how do we make decisions quickly and accurately.
Yeah, definitely practice is important. That's absolutely true. And I think, analyzing your decisions helps you see those threads and all the different permutations that could have gone, and remembering what your intuition was telling you. I think that maybe makes that process even faster to get to.
So you do a forecast, right? Then you also do a
postmortem
as well, and then you keep iterating as a way to hone your own decision.
Yeah.
Now, do you apply that to all areas of your life? Physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and relationships, business?
Probably relationship and business most, and investments, Like seeing, for example, next waves of things coming and where to go, which path, kind of very more strategic things. But then, of course, when it comes to tactical things, then I more try to study it almost more in a scientific way of doing it. But then when it comes to strategic, it's more based on intuition.
Yeah, one of the things I realized too is, because I'm trained to be a scientist, right? All my life I wanted to be a scientist. So I tend to, but the problem with that approach is there's the rabbit hole goes down forever. And now I'm paralyzed by everything under the sun that I can find. So I have to basically unlearn a lot of the habits that I have. It's like sometimes it's good enough then, because I'm never gonna have perfect information about anything.
Right.
And therefore, just all right. So it's roughly correct. Trust myself. Trust this instinct, and then also trust the information that I got, and just make the decision.
I'll give you a lucky quarter.
Thank you. Yes, please. That'll be great.
See how that works out.
See how that works out.
So you had almost like the schooling boxes that were keeping you almost like a prisoner?
Well, I mean, to be really frank, I mean, that's the logical response. And the answer is yes. But also in the inner game was the fear of failure. Because if I fail, then I am a failure. It's not the thing or the task that I took on that failed. The experiment that failed.
Right.
It was, my name is associated with it, and therefore I became a failure. And there was a lot of fear around that, versus just an experiment.
Right.
Did it work? Did it not work? Learn something from it. Take another experiment. I don't know. Did you ever have that burden of fear of failure or fear of things not working out?
A little bit, maybe probably a little bit less than like friends I know, who a lot of people seem to be.
What a blessing. How did you do that?
I don't know. I mean, there was a point, I relate that a lot to perfectionism, I think. It's very, like when you're a perfectionist. And I have a little bit of that, but it was just letting go of trying to be perfect and just appreciating that things can have faults. And that it was okay. I didn't even, maybe I was just lucky that I didn't necessarily have too many, falls, or maybe I just didn't associate them as problem areas or mistakes. I just got over it. I learned probably from it, and that was, forgot about it. I have a very good way of forgetting.
Once again, right? Then that's amazing. But is that cultivated, or is it just naturally you don't remember things, or?
Yeah, I think I just always make room in the brain to pick up the next thing I want to learn, and then I forget whatever I don't use very easily. I feel like it's a gift to be able to not remember.
No, it's true. If you think about it, if you look at, I don't know if you ever done Vipassana.
No.
Or study Buddhism
a
little bit.
Yeah.
Like the mechanics of enlightenment.
Yep.
Right? They say that life is suffering, and then the source of suffering is attachment.
Mm-hmm.
And roughly, loosely translated is you suffer because you hold on to things, or your past.
Yeah.
Or you worry about the future that hasn't happened yet. So the gift of not remember everything, which I also have right now.
Yeah.
My wife tells me that all the time. You don't remember anything.
Yeah.
No, I really don't.
That's why we have wives.
Yeah,
they remember everything.
Remember, remind us. Right, exactly. No, that's really cool.
Yeah, I've worked, I think, that part, but I definitely have the other one where I worry about the future. So I have that one. I've got to figure out how. I've gotten better throughout the years, I think. But definitely have suffered a lot because that causes anxiety.
Well, before I ask you the next question, do you want to do a little Hoppy?
Please.
Okay, so we have a gentle Hoppy or the sharper Hoppy.
This is we've done this together one time. Hoppy? Which one is Hoppy? Okay. What is this going up the nose?
Yes.
Okay. No, then we haven't done it. Because I remember at Burning Man we did.
Oh, right. That's Sananga.
Sananga and something else, no? I feel like we tried two different medicines.
In that case, that may be it, this one.
But I don't remember anything going up my nose.
In that case, no.
No. Okay.
Here's a different one.
They smell similar to me. They're supposed to smell different?
Slightly.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, now I
You have a preference?
Your recommendation?
Oh, I like gentler.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So,
since I haven't done it before, it'd be
I'll
nice.
show you.
Let me see the amount you're taking.
No. I'll actually.
You'll do it for me?
I'll do it for you.
Okay.
I'll only give you a little bit. So typically, this is really intense for your nose, and the bodily sensation is very much like a hard, challenging workout. But then right afterwards, you may feel a little lightheaded, a little tingling in your extremities, and that you should be able to also feel the calmness after the workout. So I would invite you to set an intention, so that way you can fully take advantage of the silence.
Cool.
You have one?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So the way you do it, same thing. Close your eyes. And then if you want the other nostril, it's ready for you.
Okay. Nice.
Breathe. Use your mouth.
Wow. It was just water coming out.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that was more. So the other one is even stronger, or just rougher,
Sharper.
sharper.
Yeah. You can take as long as you need.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I think I'm pretty good.
You okay?
Yeah, no, it feels good.
Okay. How was that?
I feel like the first one was stronger in the right side of my. I could literally feel just like the right front side of my face just tingling. The second one maybe it didn't go as far up. I didn't get that, and it was much more just in the nose, very strong. So it was kind of unbalanced a little bit. But I feel this like strong kind of energy inside, just expanding from the center upwards, and yeah, a little bit high almost off of it actually. I feel very like floaty.
Yeah, this is non-psychoactive. Safe, legal, and non-psychoactive.
Cool. Is it vegan?
Well, it is, yeah. It's,
Yeah.
It's tobacco and triage.
Triage? What is that?
Barks.
Ah.
Tree barks.
Ah.
Like grind it up.
Yeah, I see. Very cool.
Let me blow my nose real quick, excuse me. All right.
That was cool. Thank you.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
welcome. New experience.
Oh, new
right?
experiences.
New
Yeah, I love it.
experiences.
I love new experiences.
Yeah.
That's one of the, well, obviously because you asked me too, I felt very honored, but I like the format that you're doing this in. So it's cool and it's very exploratory.
Yeah, actually, this thing is used before the Amazon warriors go out for a hunt.
Really?
Yeah, as a way to heighten that awareness of the body, but also clear their mind. So I suppose they can function better. Obviously, I didn't follow them into a hunt, so I don't know what they do exactly, but that's what I'm told.
I heard this similar about mushrooms too, magic mushrooms, that people took it because it increased your vision, and people were using it, back then to hunt as well. So maybe a lot of these medicine is probably for that.
Perhaps.
Maybe that's why it's warrior medicine, right?
Perhaps. So you mentioned so there's actually a couple of points I want to ask you. Were you always have that spiritual calling? Because you said you trust in the universe, right? Things that's outside of you. Were you always
think
this
so.
way, or it just kind of developed over the years?
It definitely developed over the years, but definitely I would say probably the earthquake had a big shift for me too. Just realizing, well, if we're alive, then we're meant, there's a reason why we're alive. So that was very cool to learn that at a really young age. I think that like really shaped a lot. This kind of realization, like, wow, well, I stayed alive. That's why, and that kind of drove me to study like more and to learn more about it, and just more self-explore it than necessarily go to books or to a particular religion to study it. It was just more looking inwards.
Oh, interesting. So your way of learning, my way of learning, my default way of learning is always go to books.
Right.
Because I wanted to see quote unquote best practices
Right.
that other people have done. Then over the years, I learned to be trusting myself more and self-explore, right? Using that inner awareness to do it. So what was your path like?
It started like, with like I said, like really early, starting to read the encyclopedia, like in first grade. But then pretty early, like I would say, after the age of maybe after college, I would say, I just, even in college, I just started realizing that, all the answers are there if you just look for it, carefully. not necessarily, the books obviously have wisdom in it. And I try to learn from other people's mistakes or other people's stories. So I watched a lot of my friends or family relatives and tried to understand what brought everyone to the point that they are and what works and what doesn't. So really careful about trying to learn from people's mistakes or correct choices in their life, how they ended up. So follow more of that type of path. So more like an observer.
Really, empirical evidence.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Qualitative evidence.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's so cool. Very different learning style.
Very. Because I guess I didn't have my parents influence me on learning styles or the schools much. I felt like school was just something you do and you do it and you move on. I didn't invest too much time. I would just more like, let's get, get it over with, and then there's all these cool things to go do outside. That was more of the model I think I had.
I love it.
Yeah.
Do you feel that entrepreneurs tend to be that way? Since you have obviously a lot of entrepreneurial friends, and so do I. I'm curious to know your observation about the entrepreneurial quote unquote type of people.
Probably, yeah. I would say that's usual. That you could generally find that in entrepreneurial people, that they are hard to put in a box and limit themselves in particular ways. So they are just out there more. They're just very exploratory people, and for that you just have to have a very kind of free mind.
So what's your answer right now to that question? What does it all mean? That you are alive versus your friends or relatives.
I feel like you'll never know. It's like it's less of a destination, right? It's more of like the path that you keep exploring, because we change so much every day. You're never the same. So it all becomes like stories, and you.
Well, what's the current story that you tell yourself? Like, why are you here?
Yeah, I feel like my purpose is what you're asking. I feel like it's to grow myself, to grow people around me, to just have a little bit of shine if I can help anyone, whether it comes to an employee or to develop themselves in any way or give them the opportunity to choose that. Then I feel that's my purpose.
So it's not like some grand, how Steve Jobs said, let's make a dent in the universe, and they pick making computers or hardware/software as a way to enable people to do that. So it's not like some grand vision like that.
No, I definitely have a competitive side. That's definitely a competitive side I have, for sure. I definitely get off on that. But it's not like the primary. Primary task, I feel like, is more to just grow every day a little by little, nothing super grandiose, learn something new, and then help someone in any way. That, like, I feel like just and then from there it translates into like, okay, how can we scale help? How can we scale this? And then how do we fight entropy? How do we change the world a little bit better? And that's where like the businesses come, because that's kind of the only way you can really scale yourself.
Interesting. Yeah, actually I have to unlearn that. I love the mental model of the yin and the yang sign. Yang is intentionality, directionality, goal, right? And then the yin is surrendering, go with flow in this present moment. So my whole life, academically, it's all about
future,
the next goal, in order to do the next thing. And from entrepreneurship, from all this exploratory learning, transformative learning, I had to unlearn a lot of those things and start to look at the yin side of things in the present moment. And I have gained so much more appreciation. Basically, have a goal, but still hold it loosely.
Yeah.
Because ultimately all we have is this present moment, and then life will continue to unfold itself, right? I can control the process, the effort, but not the outcome. The outcome is not guaranteed.
Yep.
So cool.
Yeah, I think we live in, at least on myself, I know, I balance things through extremes. So like, yeah, you'll have all this big purpose and you got to do this, or just anything I've noticed in my life that I find balance by doing extreme opposites.
Okay, so how do you gauge that balance, and then also how do you find the opposite of this intentionality, this desire to?
Yeah, I mean, it could
compete.
be something like, I would just go and slave away, put in hours, and try to do 5 conference calls in one day and solve tons of problems, and and I'll do that maybe for 2 days, and then another day I would just either do nothing, like zero, where I'm just disconnected. I'll either go in nature, or even worse, I'll just stay home and just be complete like introvert, and then the next few days I'll go and be opposite, like super communicative and out there getting things done. So I do notice that's like something very quickly that comes in mind, but I've like self-observed going backwards a lot on all these, like, I would, for example, was really deep into kind of the science piece, right? Doing computers and studying at school and so on. But then at the same time, I had where I decided to start like an events business. So I was doing parties.
At school?
After university, basically.
Oh, no kidding.
Like at the end of university, for about 8-9 years, I had an events business where we would bring in like fly-in DJs from all over the world.
Oh, wow.
And just put together crazy parties.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, and at the same time, I had like, and then I had like a computer consulting business where I was doing networks and teaching networking, and so it was like complete 2 opposite lives, but I was finding a lot of peace in between those.
I love that. So, how do you know when you're out of balance? And by the way, I usually try to stay away from the word balance, because balance implies, right? If you look at a scale, you do this thing, but you give up this other thing. You do this thing, but you give up this other thing.
Yeah.
So I like to use the word harmony. So how do you strike that harmony, the middle way, right? The yin yang.
Yeah.
State. How do you know when you're not harmonized?
Just listening, I guess. Also, listening. Yeah. Like I could catch myself, like, for example, recently I've taken on way too much. I can bite, so I know for sure, like I've just, I have too much on my hands, too much on my plate. So it's been, but I also don't want to drop the ball on anything. So so like recently it's been pretty challenging, trying to juggle so many different things. But I also then forcefully just make time for myself. So it's just like I can feel the anxiety and the burden and the responsibility, and then also at the same time I know to be able to be responsible and to do these things properly, I need to also clear my head, or else I'll start making probably wrong decisions.
All right. So I wanted people who are listening to this get something, not just inspiration, but something tactical. So what are some of the tactics or disciplines that you use as a way to shut off that noise,
right?
The anxiety or whatever?
Okay. I have some unhealthy ones that I won't get into because of the
Okay. So what are some of the healthy ones?
Healthy ones
that you're willing to share?
Yeah.
It could be healthy or unhealthy.
Yeah.
But the ones that you're willing to share.
Healthy ones, I would say, meditating for sure is something I definitely should. It seems like the harder path, but then the rewards are great from it, because then you could really listen to what's happening deeper inside you, almost like look at the engine. So that is definitely a very valuable skill.
What kind of meditation? Because there are thousands.
There are, yeah. So a long time ago, I took inner engineering. Have you done that one or?
Is this with
Sadhguru?
Sadhguru, right?
Yeah.
I haven't done it.
Okay, that was really cool. And I practiced that 2 times a day. It's like a 40-minute practice for 6 months. I really that. Really had a lot of benefits. But then life and travel happens, and I wasn't able to keep that practice. So sometimes I'll return to that, and then at other times just basic breath, like I've always had that, as a kid. That's my go-to, super easy. I can do that anytime in the middle of a meeting if I want to, or of course it's much better at home because you just you feel in peace at home, and you can much easily get into that space. So that's probably my best tool, I would say. And not even for very long, like 10-15 minutes, and I'm in a much better space. Actually, before you came, I had a super stressful day, and I went to the bedroom and laid with Alina, and we just had a few nice breaths together, and that was a great reset. It was almost like taking a quick power nap.
Would you say that that's a pretty good relationship hack?
Yeah.
Taking deep breaths together.
Absolutely, yeah. I love that. It's my favorite thing. Even when I did this practice recently with my employees, actually, which was really cool. Yeah. So I'm exposing them now to these once a month. We'll have a session with a coach, and it's anything on productivity, just more mindfulness, and then we close. The last time they asked me, I started talking a little bit about meditation, so they asked me to guide them on one, and they're all pretty new to it. There's a few guys who have been doing it and have even taken courses. So that was really cool, and then we made that almost after every session I would do a guided meditation with them. Like
a visualization or purely counting your breath?
Every time differently, just depends.
Oh, yeah. You have a repertoire.
Just whatever it feels like. It was almost like, I think the first time I did a guided meditation was actually at your house. I think the first time we even met.
Oh yeah.
We had a little a meditation circle.
Oh yeah.
And
that's right.
That's when we kind of went around and all did guided meditation of our own, and that was the first time I did it. And I really liked it. So so I tried to do a little bit more of it, not as much as it would be awesome to do more. But yeah, then I was like, oh, let's try this. It just life led to that moment where it was very recently where we did that with the employees, and I asked them to try to be attentive to the rest of their day to see how that changed their day a little bit, and maybe it gives them a little bit of this buffer for them to be less reactive and more kind of have that space to process things a little better. So it's a practice I would love for people who want to do it to continue to do. So that's something I'm really happy that is working out, and people are very accepting of it. I didn't think people would be that accepting.
So yeah, as a business owner, I'm curious to know your perspective. Because as a business owner, you have fiduciary responsibilities to your investors, for your employees, right, to yourself,
right,
to make sure that the business is quote unquote productive, right? So a lot of business owners, they're hesitant to share these new things because it feels like a distraction to what people are supposed to do. So what is what's your point of view around introducing, because you're obviously doing that in a very active way.
Yeah.
Right. So what do you see is the potential, I don't want to say payoff, or ROI for these new practices that may or may not have a very instantaneous payoff?
Right. Because I think that with employees, especially the way we try to run our business, to not have churn of employees, because every employee, we invest so much time in the business we're in, the domain is so wide and deep, that it's really important that they're not just like an employee, they're almost like a family relative. And then you also start realizing that you take care of the employees, then they take care of the business, because I'm more or less on the day-to-day things that happen in the business. They are the ones running the business. So why not, like, if this worked and helped me, maybe it might help someone else, and why not help someone that as close as someone you work with, and spend a lot of time in your day with them. And so there's definitely selfishness to it, right? So then they take care of the business,
right?
But at the end, I think it's also just, it makes them a better rounded person. And if they can look inside of their own thoughts and have less self-limiting thoughts, that's always good for them, and then also for the business. So I think there's very high ROI. It's not necessarily the next day, but all my businesses, I never do it for like a quick turnaround and quick profit. It's everything I've done is like, if I look, it's just like a decade of work to just bring it up, but then it's it's like a solid foundation, and it's hard to topple that over. So I don't do like the quick startup, let's raise some money and then sell it off. It's more like, just let's build a good product that's creates a huge barrier to entry. And so I don't know why I'm more attracted to these kind of operations, I guess.
Long-term investments.
Yeah,
I get it. Consistency.
And I feel like I've definitely tried to do the quick, and I feel like it's just the money part. If it comes in quick, it leaves very quick too, and you don't savor it as much.
So part of it is the journey. You actually really enjoy the building,
the hustle part.
Yeah, I like it. Okay, so to the skeptics, because I'm a convert, right? I believe in what you're saying, hence why we're doing all of this. But for the skeptics still who are listening to this, are there businesses that's not necessarily suitable for this type of introduction of things that's outside of the business realm? Let's use meditation to be more specific. Right. Are there businesses whose people shouldn't be introduced in meditation?
I mean, corporations are people, no?
I agree, 100%. I agree.
So, I mean, to reframe that question, is there a person that wouldn't benefit from meditation? I would say no. So I think, I think it's critical for people and then businesses to start employing. I think the world can only get better from it. I haven't seen any harm caused from it. It's not like a waste of time. It's actually, it might feel like it because you're sitting there in silence, but even
on company time.
Company time, exactly. But then the realizations you can have, it can be so profound that you're like, no, this is great, because you could go 10 years of just, with your monkey brain, and just live in this like circular way and not ever come out of the shell. And like, who wants to live a life like that?
100% agree.
Yeah.
I am curious, whoever is listening, if you guys think that, I know a business or type of business who wouldn't benefit from these, inner game practices. I'm curious to know your point of view. Please send them to me. Cool.
Probably those big bureaucratic businesses can benefit from that, just to keep the system going.
Yeah, I guess.
Maybe
don't think, just do what I tell you.
Right.
I don't know. I wonder about that. On that thought, would you like to do a little sananga?
This is in the eye, right?
This is in the eye.
Sure.
Hoppy for your eyes.
Does Hoppy give you like an appetite?
I don't know. Feel free to So whatever you gotta do. Oh wow. If you like to, you
No, that's fine.
take a moment.
It's fine.
So, you had the gentle one at Burning Man. This is
Oh.
the more intense one.
Jesus. Okay.
I think so, right? You haven't had this type.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I just trusted you, whatever you put
Yeah,
in at
yeah,
Burning
yeah.
Man. But that
So-
I was struggling for like a good 5 minutes at Burning Man. I remember.
So lean your head back as far as you can. Same thing with the intention. Close your eyes. Actually, even more far back. No, your head.
Do I keep
Yeah, there you go.
eyes open or
No,
closed?
close. Same thing with the intention. And then you can open your eyes and then let it roll around a little bit. Breathe through your mouth.
This wasn't that bad. Or maybe I got used to it. I don't know. Or does it come in waves?
No, that's it.
That's it?
One time, yeah.
No, like, I would say this was easier. Maybe I don't know. I don't. Or maybe it was just all the dust and the sand that Burning Man. That the struggle was much more real back then.
Struggle was much more real. I like that.
Or you just went easy on me and put a few drops.
No.
Yeah,
I,
the full
only one
thing?
drop. One drop. Ready?
Yeah.
How was that? Scale 1 to 10.
Actually, this was much. I would say maybe about a 4, 5.
4.
5.
Wow.
Yeah. The Hoppy was around like a 7, 8 range.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Different feeling. Yeah, this one I was more braced for worse, I guess. From my first time of doing Sanange.
Mm.
Yeah. And yeah, this one was probably 10-15% of that experience. I remember the other one I was rolling around a little bit.
I think it probably was because it was so novel.
Maybe.
You never had pain in that areas of your body,
Could
in
be.
your eyes before.
Yeah, so I was more
So
ready
it was
for
like
it.
a shock.
Right.
Right. This time you actually were like, oh, okay, it's coming, and
I knew what to expect.
you knew what to expect. That's awesome.
Yeah, maybe with the Hoppy next time I'll be mindful to see how I feel, because that one was just like totally new feelings, like feeling the right side of your entire face.
There are
Like
also
from-
different kind of hoppies too.
Okay,
Like, similar to tobacco, the different kind of. So
interesting.
they're all different. Yeah. So I have different ones for you in the future.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, nice. Thank you.
Let's kind of look ahead a little bit. I'm curious, and then we'll wrap. With the use of technology, I actually came back from Transtech, right, where Alina actually goes quite a bit. It's the intersection between spirituality and technology, right? So the whole contention is that, yeah, you can meditate for decades and achieve a certain state of bliss or inner peace, but you can use technology to kind of help you get there faster or more, and then more predictably, because that's what technology and science is good for, predictability, right? Repeatability.
Yep.
What's your point of view on that? Do you feel that, suppose there's a ultrasound device that can get you to a blissful state in 10 minutes, Do you feel like, yeah, I don't know, I didn't earn it, or do you feel like, hell yeah, let's do it, like a biohacker type?
Yeah, no, I'm all about
You're all about
toys and technologies. But I do feel, something like that. I think what works great in spirituality, I'm pro taking shortcuts because I think they're very good at showing you what you can achieve without them. And then that way it shines a little bit of a light on path. Like, oh, I could be there. It's temporary. Same thing with like drugs, right? It might open up something, and then you it gives you direction. I feel like. So yeah, I believe in that.
So like a benchmark.
A benchmark, yeah.
How do you then? What's the line, right, between using as a benchmark versus like an self-indulgence? Then it becomes an addiction. Oh, I must have my coffee.
Right.
Don't talk to me until I have my coffee.
Right.
Right. Or don't talk to me until I meditate or whatever. Then you stop, kind of lose that middle ground. So what is the middle ground from your point of view?
That's a good question. I probably would say, again, being just self-observing to see where you are, whether it's something you're craving or you're using it as a tool. Like every decision, like before you were going to do something, you kind of look inwards and say, what am I using this for? Is this just to do it, or am I? And then also being observant of how often you're doing it too. If this is like you're using this tool more than once a month, then maybe you're using it too much. You're becoming dependent on it, or it's just like in your arsenal of things you have. So that's how I interpret whether this is something I'm overdoing it, or I need to tone it up or tone it down, like this harmony that you were talking about with things, with tools, with life.
Yeah, one of the guests that I spoke to recently, he is a managing director of this longevity project. And his whole contention of the longevity project is, how do you increase your capacity for homeostasis? And basically range. His whole premise is, it's not about sticking with your rituals every day, because that keeps you a very specific range. It's not about depriving yourself from something every day or eating McDonald's every day. His whole premise is actually do it all. So then, stress your body, fast.
Yep.
Do the bulletproof, whatever, but just don't do it forever.
Right.
So that way your body is used to that range. And I think it's very much on par with what you spoke about. You say you're at the extremes.
Right.
Very stressful, 5 conference call a day, and doing nothing per day.
Right.
Right. But speaking of that, it's I personally find it to be difficult to, if I don't have it on my schedule, I just won't do it.
Right.
So I have to schedule it. Do you have, so I want to make sure that people are listening to this. Right. They're inspired by your point of view. They want to live a more extreme life as a way to push their range, let's say. What kind of disciplines do you have to ensure that you do it?
Right.
Versus just like, I don't know, let's in flow and...
Definitely, yeah. It's a good mix of those two. I, of course, have my calendar. It's mainly business related. I do try to have certain practices that I'll do throughout my day too. For example, wake up and do 10 push-ups or 20 push-ups or 30 push-ups. Depends how you feel that day. And so I have some constant things that I might do.
Yeah, if you don't mind, actually get more specific. Concretize it, because people are like, oh, I want to emulate Suren, so tell them what they should do.
Well, that's a one way I like to wake up, and then I'll take a shower normal, but then I'll turn it to cold. So I always end my showers with cold water, make sure like head to toe I'm covered, and I'll try to do that as long as I can take it. Way better than coffee. I like coffee too, but this is like, if I don't do this, like I don't feel, my day doesn't start properly.
Cold shower, yeah.
Yeah, cold shower. So in the morning, that's probably a practice I'll have, and then I'll also start my mornings generally, like my favorite ways to start it is with music, finding new music. So probably this is where, I go into like this mode of getting a thrill out of finding something new.
The what?
A thrill out of finding
thrill.
something new,
I
like
see.
digging. I call it digging for music.
So you allocate half an hour just to dig for new music?
Yeah, yeah.
All
I
right.
start with that, and I'll take a shower with music on as well.
All right.
Like listening to new tracks that are out.
All right.
So that I've always had this like exploratory side. I think that it's just a spirit. I think it's probably, you can develop it as well, I'm guessing, but it's also something you probably need to have as well. So then that opens it up, and then when you tune into flow, then you start like spending your day almost and week to keep going macro, and just using that flow of things to find new things in your life, new people, new influences. So that is a mode I have throughout the day. Just try to never have the same day, basically. Try like always different things. I have some projects that I'll try to just divide and work on a little bit, that if I just did that project, it would drive me crazy. So I definitely multitask one to another, and I'll just
on the same day.
On the same day, I'll have like 3-4 long-term projects that I need to work on. I do work on those, and then I mix it up with just immediate things, whether it's some emails or just going around and talking to everybody a little bit, just to mix it up, just so I'm not in the same
You
mode.
like variety.
I love variety. Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Couldn't have said it better. And then when I come home, spend time and catch up and relax, obviously at home, and kind of back to a practice. I might do like a little bit of my breath work, and it could be anywhere. It could be just walking around the house. If I'm extra stressed, I like to like clean.
I see.
That helps
Restore disorder.
Yeah, exactly. And that brings me a lot of calm and relaxation, and that has a benefit as well.
Right.
You get a nice shiny house, and or organize something I've been wanting to organize. I'll just start organizing things. So maybe it's a little bit of an OCD. And then I like to, one thing I got exposed really early on to is like Alan Watts, and I love going to bed with him.
That helps you fall asleep.
It helps me. Yeah, it helps me fall asleep. It helps me like center and ground myself and remember all the things, And he speaks so incredibly well and so wise that it's definitely, it's been a good practice. It's like almost like I meditate with him while he's talking, and it's just a really good way to go to sleep, I feel like, because his voice is like monotone and just very calm, and he has a lot of pauses, and that would be my average routine week.
Any specific
days.
Alan Watts?
No, I'll just go to. I try to listen to different ones.
Well,
I mean, he's
whoever is listening. Well, which one? Which Alan? I mean, he has a lot.
He has a lot. So I'll
which one should they start with?
It really doesn't matter. It
Doesn't
really
matter.
doesn't
Anything.
does anything. They all carry so much wisdom in it that I love them all.
What's wisdom actually? Let's define that for a moment.
Wisdom is just, for me, it's just a lot of experience and knowledge rolled in together. That's just there, and it's like the right path.
A lot of knowledge roll into the right path, point you to the right path.
Yeah,
I see. Okay.
I guess that's that. If I had to define it in a quick way, that would come to mind.
Actually, I have a few other questions for you.
Please.
I know that I said it was the last question,
No,
but I
that's
do have
fine.
a few other questions. So I always see you doing cool stuff and hanging out with cool people. What are your criteria that you use to keep the people around you, one, and also for the events that you go to? Because you mentioned that you wanted to do extremes, like cool events or cool activities, right? You really, from my point of view, something that helps you be more alive. So I'm curious to know what kind of criteria do you use to keep the people around you to do the things that you do?
Good question. I haven't really thought about it, honestly. I think just looking for the variety is really important to me. So
you don't have regular like friends, like where they hang out with five people
no,
only,
I mean,
like
I have friends that like I have a friend, for example, that we've been friends from high school, and we just love to debate together. So like I just love to have friends of all social classes. I love artists, just because I just love differences in people. I guess that's I really appreciate that, and then it's also such an opportunity to learn from everyone. I feel like a chameleon too. I remember from early on, my mom would know which friend I'm talking to on the phone, because she was like, you would talk like them. I didn't even realize that. That's like maybe a criteria, like things I want to learn, and I think you learn something from everyone too. So I use every experience with people to learn something from them.
Yeah, the same guy that I was speaking about earlier, June, he said that he loves talking to people who loves a specific thing, because then he can see the world through their lens.
Yeah.
For example, someone who loves UC Berkeley, say, please show me the Berkeley that you know. Then he says, very intoxicating. It sounds like you do that as well. You like hanging out with people who's really passionate, who's really loves what they do, and then you're like, please show me is that similar?
I don't necessarily ask them for something. I just, through osmosis, try to, it's not very conscious, I think. It's just being around them, I feel like just pushes my limits, and really appreciate either the talents they have or the perspective that they have. Kind of along the same, June, you mentioned this?
June, yeah.
Yeah. What resonated with when you said that, like when I travel, I intentionally get lost. I like to just get lost, to that way you either interact or have to figure yourself out of a particular situation. That's a practice I love doing when I'm traveling. I get to see the world from different perspective, or you meet someone and see things. It's almost like a virgin with their eyes, and how the world looks for them, or if someone is going through an experience you have been to, but it's their first time. That's very intriguing too for me, because I could really relate, and like it's a very emotional experience for me.
That's a beautiful way to live, because you're always seeing the world through new eyes. Yeah, that's so cool. Well, one last question, which is the whole premise of this whole podcast, right? What does it mean to be a man in modern times? I know that we touch a little bits and pieces everywhere, but for the people that are listening, what do you think is
job of a man?
I guess responsibility. What's it like, and what is the role, right, of being a man in modern times?
Right. I think a big role would be to cultivate courage, and because it all starts from there. Like when we started talking about choosing between positive or negative, it's the courage that shifts you and makes you do like one little bit extra to get to the positive side, right? So it all starts, I think, from there. So the more you build that into yourself and inspire others to have courage to move forward with situations and not beat down on themselves, I think and I feel like that's a responsibility of men to do, because maybe it comes a little bit more naturally for men. And yeah, that's something that just kind of comes up.
So tactically, I want to make sure that people are inspired by your story, by your narrative, but also they can try something on themselves, right? So what would be a tactic that someone can try on to be more courageous?
I think the awareness of it is definitely knowing about it is very useful, and really evaluating when you're making a choice, whether is this the courageous path or is this not the courageous path. And very easily we choose it's like the least of path, the least resistance path is definitely, if you're mindful of it, it's usually not the most courageous path. So that is probably is just as you're making decisions throughout the day, to maybe bring that forward. Like, is this the courageous path or not?
I mean, actually, one thing we didn't really talk about, I don't know if you want to kind of edit it in there.
Sure.
So one thing we didn't talk about is entrepreneurship, especially the American dream, right? People want to be business owners. People look up to people who build companies and have employees. And knowing what you know now, having run, how many businesses you have built before?
Oh man, it's hard to keep track, but right now I'm running like 4 businesses.
Right. So so historically you run probably many more, right?
Right.
But right now you're running 4. So they have this romanticized, idea of what's it like to be an entrepreneur. So maybe if you knowing what you know now, maybe you can give them a little bit of a glimpse.
Yeah.
Like, what is the real deal? Because from my point of view, you live a joyous life. From their point of view, conventionally, it's you gotta sacrifice everything, sacrifice your health, sacrifice your relationships, sacrifice your friends, sacrifice your hobbies.
So there's definitely a lot of sacrifice.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But so share with us.
Right.
How do you have it all worked out?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, the first thing is passion. You gotta have passion for anything, something. Everybody has a passion, I think, whether they've discovered it or not. Everyone has some talent, something that it could be the least productive thing in their mind, but finding that, nurturing it, practicing it, getting better at that is super important. And then looking for a niche you can apply that to. Something where it's not super, at least this is my process. And then applying that to a niche and sticking through it, not giving up. The beginning part is like heavy sacrifice, heavy. Then usually it's about, from the way I've practiced like the business piece, I would say it's usually like the first 2-3 years. You have to heavily sacrifice and just roll with the punches, but then every day you just do something to move that forward, something that the next day you would look back and thank yourself for doing that. So every day you just put one brick, then the next day you make sure there's another brick, and you just practice that without looking at all the punches that are coming along your way. So that first few years is like the heavy sacrifices. Then after that, if you didn't give up, that's when there's like this opening that happens, and things start working out in your favor more and more and more and more, and it's then it's becomes more about going with the flow and not having too far of a direction where you need to go. Understanding maybe what the customer needs, because they change all the time. So you can't just be going and creating something in a black box, and then 3 years or 5 years later you come like, hey, look at what I built. The world has changed by then differently. So then it's more like every day you pick up, you kind of tune in. You have to be super tuned in to see what the world wants at that point. And you kind of work on that little by little every day.
So let me actually ask a follow-up question there, because conceptually, I agree 100%. And when you go from 0 to 1, a lot of times there's not a whole lot of feedback coming your way, though.
Yeah.
Right? Elon Musk calls it, not everyone is Elon Musk, number one, but he calls it eating glass, staring into the abyss, right? And it's pretty lonely during that time.
Mm-hmm.
I would use this podcast as an example. This is my second podcast. My first podcast, I did 8 episodes, and I stopped.
Right.
Because there was no feedback. Then I figured, people are not interested in it, and I had a totally different context, hence why I stopped.
Mm-hmm.
So then there's a line between, yes, continue to build that brick after brick every day, then you'll reap the rewards 2 years from whatever.
Right.
But then there's also, all right, so there's no feedback. The feedback's not positive. Whatever I'm building, the market isn't appreciating it. So where is that line?
It's your, that's where you have your passion that is just driving you. Like, I don't care whether I have feedback or not. This is something like I need to do. It's that drive. You have a drive from that, and then your vision too, because you can't build something in one day. You can't. It's impossible. So you have to go toward. You'll never reach your ultimate vision, but you gotta have it because that's at least for me. That's what keeps me going, because I know like I'm gonna reach it one day, or I'm gonna get really close to it. But it's not going to be an easy, necessarily short path to it.
So you're going knowing that?
You go in knowing that, yeah. You go in knowing, I guess because I've done it now a few times, now I know that, and I don't have a personality to give up fast. I like sticking through it, just like...
You enjoy the
very
pain.
Stubborn. Yeah, I do. I like that. I like pain, actually. So I can be I used to be super stubborn, actually.
You used to be.
I
it's
think
a past tense.
I realized that it was a big weakness, actually, being stubborn. But I know how to go back to it, at least like use it more like a tool. So
you can channel it if you want.
Yeah, I can channel it, and that's where I've like tried to use it in a more positive way than just to be an asshole.
So you weren't always this nice?
No.
You were at some point an asshole?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, I got you.
Absolutely.
Right. It's a growth process.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're here now.
Yeah, no, you have to go to dark places to be able to appreciate like the bright places.
Okay, so this follow-up question. Do you believe that's an inevitable growth, developmental process?
For me, yeah. That's just how it worked out for me, so I don't know what it's like for other people. But for me, being really challenged or being really in dark places, you just know now not to go there. Like now it's like more clear, like, okay, this is good, this is bad. The choices become very like the tree, right? It's multiple universes we're talking about. You quickly, if this path leads, this little action can continue to leading towards this darkness, you can cut that stem really quickly and choose to grow in this direction.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's all about developing that inner awareness. For me, the life of darkness is filled with anger, fear, resentment, woe is me, victim, I'm not worth it, or whatever. Been down that road.
Yeah.
Not fun.
No, there's nothing that you can gain from it other than just continuing in your downward spiral.
Well, so from my point of view, that initial part is satisfying.
Yeah.
The victim, like I'm a victim, therefore I don't need to take responsibility.
Yep.
Right? Because that's the payoff. But the afterwards is terrible.
It is.
But if you flip it, actually one of the guests, Paul, said it's easy to go down the path of fear and anger because you don't need to do any work.
Yeah.
But then the later cost is so much higher. But then if you keep your heart open, it takes effort to keep your heart open in that moment. but the payoff is almost immediate
Yeah.
as well, just a little bit longer, and then just there's that path that you can take.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is that
No,
is
I'm
that
very
similar?
articulate. Yeah, yeah, exactly how I feel.
I appreciate this.
Yeah,
Thanks, my friend.
Very
This is great.
cool.
Yeah, very cool.
yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey, Soren, I really acknowledge you for sharing everything you share. I got to know you a little bit better. Mission accomplished.
Thank you.
And also just what a story. So intuitive. A very, very different path than my own path. But nonetheless, here we are having a conversation. Right.
Thank you. That
Yeah.
was beautiful. I feel great. All these things we got to try, and you got so much out too,
Yeah.
for myself and for you. I think
Yeah. For sure.
that was beautiful.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I'm a big fan.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So guys, go out and take some actions, and like what Soren was saying, try something new. You know, develop that awareness for courage. And till then, have a beautiful rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Soren.